TitleMatchNetwork.com.
Thoughts on Hulk as a person and a performer? Obviously, you were close to him.
Great person. Hogan, I don't have a bad word to say about Hogan. Always a great person. Always proud to be with him. Love to walk into places with him. And I stood at his house. His wife made us meals, gave us, sent us with coolers out of the house. And he's a unique individual, man. He was a great guy. I just love Hogan. Everything about him. He was like a cartoon character. He was like larger than life. He was on the front cover of the Sports Illustrated, the most recognizable sports entertainer in the world.
Why do you think he took off as such a massive superstar?
I think it was his look, and that Rocky movie helped him.
Now, one of his biggest foes in the business, and probably did a lot of business for the company as a whole, was Roddy Piper. What are your memories about Hot Rod?
Oh, I love Roddy. I love Roddy. Roddy Piper, do you remember the Piper story?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. I'm in Texas with Roddy Piper. We're driving down the road. He goes, let's stop at that bar right there. He goes, I want to get a drink. There's about 100 Harley Davidsons parked right in the front. I go, Roddy, we can't go in there because first thing they're going to do is they're going to look at us and they're going to want to fight us. So, because it's a rowdy place. He goes, now we are going in, you know?
Right.
So we go in the bar. Everybody turns. Music stops. I always reference that scene in Animal House when they walk in the bar and everything stops.
Right.
It was kind of like that. Roddy walks up to the bar. He orders 2 shots of Jack Daniels. And this big guy, 300-pound biker with leather cap, the whole deal. He looked like the big boss. Goes up to Roddy's drink, picks it up, puts it in his mouth. He goggles and he spits it back, puts it back on the bar. Looks at Roddy right in the face. Roddy picks up the glass and goes, "Glad to know you." And then when he did that, everybody laughed. Drinks were flying. He disengaged the entire problem. It wasn't even a problem. Roddy couldn't care less. He would have loved to have a fight.
Did you ever have any? Did you ever witness any heat between him and Hogan for the top spot?
No, because nobody could touch Roddy on the mic.
Yeah, best talker in the business.
Yeah.
As the company starts to expand nationally, are you offered a contract at this point?
No contracts then.
Okay. They're doing about 2 to 3 shows a night and an insane schedule. At what point did you know that you had a full-time gig with the company?
You never do know. You never do know if you have a full-time gig. You could work 4 weeks in a row and then not get bookings for 2 weeks, and then if you get hurt, forget it.
Walk us through how rough the schedule was from a touring standpoint.
Oh my God, we were working like 17 days in a row, and then 3 days off, then 4 days in a row, then 3 days off, then 17 in a row, and then 3 days off. It was rough.
What was the worst schedule that you could remember undertaking?
Oh my God, doing like a 17-dayer and then jumping on a plane and going to Australia or New Zealand and being out there for like a week and a half.
Did you ever crack?
No, I never was a cracker. I was always the guy to do everything he was supposed to do. And
going back to Hogan, did you consider him one of the boys, or was he different? Did he have his
No, he did not have his own
locker room.
He might have had his own locker room, but he very rarely. He was one of the boys. He always wanted to be one of the boys. He never wanted to be the prima donna type wrestler.
Was he approachable to other talent?
Definitely.
Okay. Memories of George Scott during his time of booking?
George Scott, when he came in, George Scott died too, didn't he?
No, I think, yeah, I think he did.
I remember when George Scott first came in, he loved Ric Flair. He wasn't high on Hogan. He wanted to get rid of Hogan to bring Flair in. It wasn't going to work.
Right.
I mean, I love Flair to death. Flair's great. I even told Flair that. I says, when George Scott came in, he wanted to bring you in. He goes, I know. But it wouldn't have been the same impact. I don't think it would have been.
How did the NBC deal change how WWF did business? Obviously, they got hooked up with NBC. They did Saturday Night's Main Events.
Yeah, what's that guy's name?
I know exactly who. It's on the edge of my tongue.
Yeah, he was in a plane crash. And,
yeah. I forgot.
Oh, yeah, I know. I think the whole NBC thing was great because they would get like one shot a year or something like that in Saturday Night Live spot.
Yes.
And who doesn't want to be in business with NBC?
How does Vince change as the company became bigger and had more success?
It's like there was lightning in his veins. It's like he became like, I want this. I remember the first day he says, we got to go live. There's nothing like live. So all the guys from Memphis, they were like, so what? All of us were like, no. You know, because we know if we screw something up, you know what I mean? It stays. But the guys in Memphis always worked live.
Was Vince approachable to you at all, or did you not really have any dealings with him early on?
Early on,
Yeah.
I didn't have much dealings with him.
Okay. Memories working with Terry Garvin and Pat Patterson.
They were always there, always respected by Vince. Nothing to.
What made Pat Patterson so talented at finishes?
He just had a natural instinct about not giving the people what they expect. Always swerving people at the end.
Memories of J.J. Dillon.
J.J. Dillon was a very conservative kind of guy. Wasn't really. You would never think he was a wrestling person because all he was, to me, what he was he was a wrestling person, the Four Horsemen and all that stuff. But he was more of an office guy. Would do paperwork and stuff like that.
Back in the 80s, as a wrestler, everyone wants to be world champion. So were you happy with your role, or did you want to be used more?
No, because I knew I had longevity.
You knew your spot.
I knew my spot. I knew longevity. I knew it didn't matter. I mean, if it was not predetermined, it might have bothered me.
You weren't like one of the guys that would go to the office and say, "Hey, try to push yourself to management."
I did a few things. I came up with that Abe Knuckleball Schwartz gimmick, and I approached it to Vince, and he liked it, and it didn't last. And I did Doink for a while, and I did the Kimchi with Kamala for a while. But,
right.
But the only one I went to Vince with was the Abe Knuckleball Schwartz.
Okay. What was the proper way to conduct yourself in the locker room during that time period to keep you from getting any heat? Just pretty much stay to yourself?
Yeah, just stay to yourself and let people lock your bags up in the rafters, and people ribbing was on.
Who was the king of the ribs, Henning or Fuji?
God. No, I would say Marty Jannetty, Davey Boy, Henning, Owen Hart, master at ribs.
Right.
And some serious ribs.
Any ribs that stick out?
Yeah, well, one of the ribs, like I told in the podcast, I was telling about the rats. And
ring rats? No.
No. The rats that they fed to Jake Snake.
Yes.
They used to carry around the fish tank and all this. And I didn't even do it. I told Marty to see. I see all these guys all the time. I said, Marty, I just put you in this podcast. I said, remember the thing with the rats? He goes, yeah, man. He goes, you did it too. I didn't do it. I said, I was in the room with you and I got the heat for it. He turned it over and the rats scattered all over the building. And then the company got like a $16,000 extermination fee.
That's crazy.
I'm telling you. But the boys, like the Chief Jay Strongbow used to say, the inmates run the asylum. They don't now.
I was going to say that.
Yeah. They don't now.
Memories of some of the other preliminary talents from the 80s era. And do you think that any of these guys should have been given a stronger push, like Paul Roma?
Paul Roma got a little bit of a push with Hercules.
Yeah.
And,
Power and Glory.
Yeah. Barry Horowitz, they gave him a little push with, what's the name? Candido.
Yep.
And
what about like guys like S.D. Jones, Terry Gibbs?
Well, Terry Gibbs didn't last very long. He wound up quitting to go to US Air in Pittsburgh. S.D. Jones, believe it or not, when I was young in the business, I looked at S.D. Jones the same way I looked at Pedro Morales, like he was one of the guys.
Yeah. And you always thought, if you watch him on TV, you always thought he had a chance too.
Yeah.
How would you compare Hogan, Warrior, and Austin and what they meant to the respective eras of the company?
Hogan was one of the boys. Hogan was the first. Hogan, to me, had the biggest pop of them all in the 80s. He was huge. Austin was business. Austin probably made the most money. I would say Austin made more money than Hogan, but I think Hogan actually was more over in his era than Austin. Who was the third one?
Warrior?
Warrior was, he was over. I would say I would go Hogan, Austin, Warrior. But Warrior was over. Believe me, I'm not taking, because you give me three powerful names here.
Yeah.
So, but Warrior was over.